I just came to a realization a couple of weeks ago, and in hindsight, I think I've secretly always suspected this to be true, but it was this experience I had a few weeks ago, this little epiphany that just came to me, that made me realize and reflect upon it. And what is it that I realized? What is this grand epiphany that came to me? Well, it's quite simple. I drink way too fucking much. I drink too much alcohol. Now let me be clear when I say I drink too much. I'm not saying that I'm an alcoholic. I mean, supposing you had you put me on a desert island where there was no alcohol, everything else existed that was conducive to living a civil, a civic lifestyle, and everything that could help me survive and get rescued, etc., like food, water, and drink, but no alcohol. Well, I probably wouldn't like it, but at least I would survive. However, it's probably only in such circumstances that I would not drink alcohol in the first place, because I don't like using the word dependence, because I never really conceived of myself as dependent, but I do rely heavily on drink. So, and this was, I'm describing my stream of thoughts as they happened weeks ago, back when I had this realization. So, I never thought that I had a drinking problem, because I always thought to be an alcoholic, you have to be doing something ridiculous, like drinking 12 whole cans of Fosters or whiskeys every single day, and getting wasted in the afternoon, acting abusive and acting aggressive and antisocial out in public, getting drunk and starting fights, things like that. And that certainly wasn't me. So I never really thought of myself having a problem. But something occurred to me while I was in the process of doing my online training for my current job as a care worker, because there are all these online courses that they have to make us do, which are all quite cumbersome and tedious, but I suppose they're for civil and legal liability, to show that their staff knows what they're doing and that they've done the right things, they've gone through the right motions, etc. And one of the courses I remember doing, it was about dementia. Now, there's a very specific type of dementia that I didn't know existed, because I know what dementia is. I've heard it been described, I've seen it, but I didn't realize that dementia is actually an umbrella term of lots of different causalities, many of which are genetic, but some are brought about by lifestyle habits. One of which, believe it or not, is consuming too much alcohol. Now, this is called Korsakov's dementia. Now, the more I read up about Korsakov's dementia, I sort of fell down a rabbit hole where at some point one of the little factoids that I was reading on this online course I was studying, it told me about the UK maximum recommended weekly alcohol limit. Is that what it's called? Let me think about it. The legal... Hold on. I don't know if it's legal. No, it's just... There's a baseline... In the UK, they have a weekly sort of baseline recommended alcohol intake limit, and it varies whether you're an adult man or an adult woman. And it's slightly higher if you're an adult man, but essentially, if you're an adult male, like I am, then the weekly recommended intake limit is, I think, 14 units. That's 14 units a week. Now, I never really thought much about how much I was consuming in relation to that. But it did But there were certain memories that came to me while I was rereading that little factoid, while I was making my way through this course. I remembered one occasion, I think it was 8 or 9 years ago, I visited my local dentist and he asked me if I drank, and I told him how much I drank, not thinking much of it, and he seemed quite alarmed and perturbed. He said, "Goodness, I think you should cut down on the drinking." And at the time I thought, what, is he serious? I mean, come on. That just seems like a normal amount. I just have a couple of pints each night. Sometimes I have 3. That's if I'm really, if I'm really out on a bender. But I never have more than that. I never get wasted. I don't act in an antisocial manner or anything like that. So what's the big idea? But this time, I think maybe this is because this happened in the context of me studying all these different kinds of dementia, many of which are brought about by lifestyle factors, and something clicked in me. And I realized I drink more than 3 times the weekly recommended limit under, I don't know what it is. It's not a legal weekly limit, but it is a weekly limit that you often see. It's the weekly limit that they recommend you take, that you consume no more of. I can't remember whose responsibility it is to put out this, but anyway, 14 units a week is how much they say you ought to have and no more. And I realized that for the past, 5-10 years, I've been drinking more than 3 times that amount. And another thing that I noticed, a couple of weeks ago, I was recording a video log like this one, and somebody pointed out in the comments section that I seem to be talking faster than normal. And at the time, I wasn't sure what to think of that, because, well, I've always spoken like this, really. I talk at a very deliberative and slow and leisurely pace. I just thought that was simply, a natural consequence of being born with what we might call brain damage. I've gone into a 5 or 6 part video series on autism, but there we go. But anyway, I realized, what if the alcohol that I'm drinking is causing me to talk more slowly? What if it's making my brain foggier? What if it's my regular consumption of this intoxicating liquid that is fogging up my brain, making me think at a slower pace and making me speak and relate my ideas at a much slower pace? What if it's making me simultaneously more neurotic and more tired at the same time? And it's not until recently that I finally stopped to think, maybe I should try drinking less. Now, to put into perspective how much alcohol I've been having, I really didn't think this was much of a problem. I didn't think it was a cause for concern. Each night, because, you see, I live with my grandparents, and my grandparents, I've made this very clear, they are the loveliest, kindest, and sweetest people in the world. They like to spoil me rotten. So whenever we have dinner, I would have 2 glasses of white wine. And it's really good white wine, I especially like dry wine. I'm quite open-minded when it comes to different alcoholic drinks, but in general, I have a preference for dry wine and stout, weirdly enough. Stout and real ale. Now these are the spiritual nectar. This is the spiritual drink of our ancestors. This is the nectar of the English real ale. I often like going to different pubs and trying the different real ales that they have on draft to see how different they all taste and all that. But in general, I rarely ever drink until evening time, because I just don't think it's right to have an alcoholic drink early in the day. And it's things like that. It's these little rules that I had that made me so certain I didn't have a drinking problem. But it's all about perspective. It's all about seeing the big picture. Having a glass of wine every night may not seem like much. I mean, having 2 glasses doesn't seem like much. And to be honest, I think my grandparents drink more than that as well, but that's an entirely different conversation. And by the way, both of them are fit as a fiddle. They're both in their 90s and they can hold a straightforward conversation. They're both sound of mind. Neither of them have any signs of dementia. But if you do that every single night, you consume the same amount each night. I did some number crunches and realized that a large glass of wine is basically 3 units, whereas a normal glass is closer to 2, and a small glass is basically 1 or 1.5. But having 2 large glasses, and that's the thing, because my grandma doesn't like seeing me have more than 2 glasses of wine each night, I think because it's expensive for her to get. I think she worries about me, so I make a point of having as much. I would always make a point of having as much wine as I could in the glasses that I was able to pour myself. So that's why I would always have 2 large glasses each evening. So all in all, tally that up by 7, because there's 7 days in a week. That all comes up to 6 times 7. That's 42 units. And the weekly recommended intake is 14. So that's actually 3 times the legal amount. Except every Sunday morning we have this tradition where we all walk to this local pub and we meet up with family friends and we order a drink. And yes, it happens in the morning. Incidentally, that's where I'm headed off to right now. And because it's a family tradition, that's how I figure I'm able to justify breaking the no evening drinks rule. But when you add that up, it really does become more than 3 times the weekly limit. So something like 45 or 46 units a week. And that's how much I've been drinking for definitely since the start of this year. Probably I drank even more before we started moving house. But sometimes you need to have experiences like this to make you stop and reflect and thinking, what am I actually doing to myself? Is this good? Should I stop and make a change? But anyway, this experience has given me momentary pause to reflect on my lifestyle choices. So I've decided I'm not going to completely cut alcohol out of my life. I don't think I could, even if I wanted to. And besides, why would you want to? You got to live a little. The thing is, I genuinely enjoy the taste. I like the taste of wine. I think it'd be pretty miserable if I decided I could never have any wine again or any stout. So you gotta live a little. You gotta enjoy the finer things in life every now and then. But I'm gonna be having less of it. So for one, my first rule that I've concocted for myself is I'm not going to be having any alcohol on weekdays. Now this rule makes a lot of sense in my situation because, first of all, I work as a mobile care worker, so I need to drive. I need to drive around from place to place, and you can't drink while you're as long as you have a job that involves driving, you've got to be responsible with the drink. It's one of those things, you can't be too complacent about that. And second, I'm gonna keep hold of the only drinking in the evening rule, because again, I just don't think it's right to enjoy an alcoholic drink before around 7 p.m. That's the way I see it. I think there's something quite antisocial about having alcohol before then. You know, the evening is for drinking, not the morning, not the afternoon, and good God, not the morning. Barring special occasions or family gatherings, I think those are the only exceptions to the rule. Certainly not when you're alone, of course. And the next thing I would say, the next rule I want to add is try not to go over 14 units. So I want to meet the delicate balance between enjoying the clarity, the soundness of mind that comes with sobriety, because the more I watch my videos, the more convinced I am that alcohol is having an indirect effect on the way I speak, the way that my thoughts are processed in real time. So I want to tiptoe the delicate balance between enjoying myself when the time calls for it, and being able to relate my thoughts in a lucid and comprehensible manner when I record these video logs, whenever I get an idea for them. And also, I don't know what will happen if I keep up these habits in the long term, but I may find that it helps me become a different person. I might become more organized, and I might become more patient. I might become more content. I might become a happier and more mentally adjusted person. Nothing's guaranteed. There may be times where I feel that I have to get back on the drink, and obviously that wouldn't be desirable, but these things happen. Yeah, this isn't the first time actually that I've tried to make a change with my habits. But I'll see how it goes. I'll see how it works out. So anyway, that's what I wanted to talk to you about. I'm going to cut down on the drinking, and you guys can judge for yourself whether it's a good idea and whether I ought to keep doing it. And I'll see you later. This has been Tracking. Take care, everyone.